this computer. There we go. All right, Mike. So, dude, we had an awesome conversation to start this. So we cheered with our favorite beverages. But, dude, we're so excited, man. So the reason you and I wanted to do this was, we're all facing this quarantine, coronavirus, stay at home, and one of the things that's coming out of this, is there's a lot of information that's getting pumped through a TV, right? And people are, if we don't watch it, it can take you for a spin of just, where now you're sitting in front of your TV for 7 hours straight, just watching nonstop updates of like how many people are dying, And one of the things that you and I were saying was we could, we need to acknowledge the fact that there's people that are dying, because of this horrible disease, but what positive can come out of this, and I think that's one of the things that can come out of this is get to know the leaders of our jiu-jitsu community a little bit better, So you and I have crossed paths a bunch of times, and I think you're like an amazing human being. So I think you're an amazing human being, but we've never had an opportunity to sit down and talk. Just because we're always, like you're running after your students, I'm yelling at one of my students, or you're running an event, you're doing something else. So I'm very lucky, man. I'm very happy to finally be able to sit down and have this conversation.
I'm happy to be here, brother. You've always shown me a lot of support. Not to get into stories right away, but I had a horrible loss, at your event, and it really was heartbreaking. But you came back and talked to me, man, and the words that you spoke to me really stuck with me, and it meant a lot to me. You didn't have to come back there and talk to me, and everything you were saying was real, and it had an effect on me. So
beautiful, man, beautiful. Well, I'm a fan of the human experience, man, the human emotion, and I immediately gravitate towards people that are just that there's no layers to them. It's like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it, and I get that vibe from you, man. So, but we were starting to talk about a little bit about your background, man. So how did you start training jiu-jitsu?
Okay, so I started, I went to grade school here in Tucson, and then I moved to LA when I was about 23 years old. And then when I was 27, which is about 15 years ago, I got into jiu-jitsu. And I was just kind of lost at the time. I'd been doing a lot of drugs and drinking and partying, and didn't really have anything solid in my life to keep me on track, and I'd always thought I was a tough guy. I wrestled in high school, and I was that asshole at the bar that gets in fights with people, that is just unreasonable. I don't know how I had friends. I honestly don't. I don't know if I knew me back then, there's no way I would hang out with that guy. He was just an asshole, but anyway, but I did kind of have an awakening that I needed to change my life. And I actually walked into this jiu-jitsu gym because I had wrestled and I knew a little bit about it, and I knew that I wanted to do some ground stuff. And it's funny that I was waiting tables one time at this place in Los Angeles, and this guy walks in, and he's got a yellow hoodie on, and it says Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I was so cocky. I literally thought first thing, I'm I could take that dude. Just yeah, just the way my brain worked,
Yeah.
And I was so wrong. Anyway, fast forward, I go find a jiu-jitsu school. I walk in. There's my coach. His name's Chris Lissandro from Street Sports Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His coach is Renato Magno from Street Sports. I walk in, and it's the guy that was wearing the hoodie. And I'm oh, and then I quickly realized, I'll never beat this guy in a fight. It was humbling, I can't believe I thought that, Anyway, so I was with them for, about 12 years, 11 years, all the way from white through brown. And I ended up moving around a bit, getting injured, and finally found my way back to Tucson. And that's when I found Undisputed and started training there, and I got my black belt from Dave. But I'm still in really good standing with my old coach. It was just kind of circumstance that led me to Undisputed.
When'd you get your black belt?
I got my black belt 3 years ago in February.
In February?
So I just got my first degree.
Congratulations, man. That's
awesome. February 18th, man.
What was that moment as a brown belt when did you know ahead of time that you were getting your black belt?
I did know I was getting my black belt. I mean, he didn't say it, but basically I
It was
went,
hey,
well,
be there Saturday, kind of.
no, like I went to Phoenix to a tournament in Phoenix, and Dave went up there to coach me, and it was a brown belt tournament, and not bragging, but I like smoked everyone. Like it was like I just like submitted like 3 subs in a row, and then I was on the podium and I got off, and Dave was like, "Hey man, what are you doing in February? You ought to come to Tennessee with me to like the team trainings, you know?" And
Mm.
I'm like, "Oh shit, like it's happening." You know, right then I
It's
knew, like,
happening right
okay,
there.
it's playing
Yeah.
out. Yeah, because he's taking me to go to his coach, you know, Sean Hammonds, and he like bought me a ticket, you know, and it was a really amazing experience, you know. But I knew when I got there, like, okay, you know, he's definitely gonna give me my back. I figured anyway. I wouldn't have
What
been
was that?
disappointed if it didn't
Yeah.
happen, but
What was that? What was that for you? What was it that like that week or the day before your promotion, right? Because it's a big change of it's not a status change, but it's a change of what's expected of you as a person and as a coach, right?
yeah,
Where the puck now ends with you, right? So like you don't have the luxury of not knowing anymore, right? So as
right,
every other belt, like somebody has a question, you're like, I don't know, man, go ask the black belt, you know, or you try to help them as much as you can.
yeah.
But now you're that person that, you know, when people come to you for, you know, anything from mental coaching to technique to sometimes even like a life story, you know, or like a life coaching, you're that person. And did you have a moment where you're like, okay, man, in 12 hours, I'm going to be a black belt? What was that for you? What was it like for you?
Honestly, you know, no, I didn't. I never like. I think it's because, and this might sound weird, but I've never thought I deserved it. I
Mm,
don't know. I've always felt that way. I've always like, when it comes to jujitsu, each belt, you know, I've always just been like, I'm not good enough for this. You know what I mean? I don't know why. But as far as like the pressure of teaching people, you know, and like, oh, okay, now like I'm going to have this responsibility. I don't know. You know, I've been teaching people since I was a blue belt. So it always, for me, teaching has always been like, I'll tell you what I know, you know what I mean, and
mm,
like I'll do my best, and you know, I have some knowledge and I have some experience, and I'll do my best to make you a better person, but you know, I'm not flawless, you know what I mean. So it's like,
right.
I've never really felt a lot of pressure from that. I've always just been like, I'll give you what I got.
Right. No, and that's I think that's the key, man. I love the way you said it, where like I'm not flawless, right? So even though I have created this around me, right? So like I'm a black belt and I have this academy, doesn't mean I don't come with like my own personal flaws as a human being, but it just means that I'm trying my best, right? And that's all you can ask from a student, also, right? It's because if you keep trying, eventually
Yeah.
you're gonna hit that ball. You know, you keep swinging at it. You just can't quit just because you're flawed as a person, right? But I like that, man. That not deserving. I've never felt like I deserved the belt either. Like every time it came, I to
Yeah.
me was like, okay, I have to work really hard because now I'm a blue belt, you know. And to me personally, the blue belt was my favorite one because the white
Mine
belts
too,
hated you.
man.
Yeah, right. Because the white belts hated you because you know um, there's a competition to it, right?
Right.
And then the purple belts, they're like, oh well, now you're good enough to where they don't have to carry you through the role anymore. Now you're my training partner. So you're getting it from both ends, where you have this white belts that are going super hard on you because now there's an expectation of a skill that it's supposed to be there. And the purple belts are like, well, you're good enough where I don't have to carry you anymore, and I'm just gonna whoop your butt every time we roll.
Well, you know, for me, blue belt was so important, and still, you know, I know black belt. It's almost like, you know, like sacrilegious to say like my blue belt meant more to me, but
No, yeah,
it was, you know, like I had mentioned before, was that, you know, up till I started jujitsu, I was really lost. I was, like I said, doing a lot of drugs and drinking a lot, and like finally got sober for that time period. I was basically sober for about 4 years before I like kind of dipped my toe back in the water. I did a lot of growing up at that time. But that first year that I spent as a white belt, or it was 10 months that I was a white belt before I got my blue belt. And I had finally like done something. You know what I mean? Like since I was a teenager, all the way up to this point at 27 years old, 28 years old, I had never stuck with anything that long. To like, it was good for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd been an artist, I'd never been consistent though. And finally I went to this thing that I went to 4 days a week. I competed, I gave it my all. I showed honor in the sport that I was in. I had integrity, and I gave it all I had. And it was 10 months of that, and I got this belt, that was like, dude, I almost passed out. I was like, it was so overwhelming to me.
That's so
that
beautiful, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really, really important to me.
Dude, that's so beautiful, man. And I think and we always talk about the what jiu-jitsu can teach you, right? But I don't think we ever like put it down for people to really be able to masticate that and to understand what that means. But I think you just hit the nail on the head where it really means that, man. It's like, it's jiu-jitsu. Your progress is so tangible. If you and I start training together today, and I miss a week and you don't, in
Right.
2 weeks from now, you're whooping my butt.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? And the only difference was that I was relaxed in my training, and you didn't. You showed consistency, and you stayed with it, and you accepted guidance from the mentors. You stuck through the dark times of, am I getting better? Am I even learning? So all those things that happen to us when we start. But I think, just like you said, I think for me, like every time it wasn't even like a tournament yet, but it was like, I remember surviving my first like Shark Tank training, where you're gonna stay in a fresh guy every minute or every 2 minutes. And I remember going through that tank and driving home, and just all of a sudden it just hit me. I said, what else can I achieve in life that I don't think I'm capable of? Because I remember when my coach said, okay, you're staying, I almost like broke down, and like in fear. I didn't think I could do it. I think that was, I thought that was something like the pros or the blue belts were doing, and next
Yeah.
thing you know is I'm staying in, and I'm getting beat up, and they're just yelling at me like, keep fighting, and you somehow figure out, okay, like, I'm not quitting, I'm gonna keep fighting. And you come out of that, and then a fresh guy comes in, and then you're like, okay, no, this is it, this is where I break, this is where I quit, this is where, and then they just keep yelling at you like, quitting is not an option. And once you understand that, and you start learning how to apply yourself to, okay, if quitting is not an option, and merely surviving is not also an option, but to come out of this victorious is the goal. What person do I need to become to achieve that? And
Yeah.
I can't think of a better way of learning that than through jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah. Even like, just there's so many specific things within jiu-jitsu that are such great examples. Like even like Shark Tank, right? I love putting people through that when they're getting ready for tournaments. But right there, just that aspect alone will show you like, hey, if you put someone down on the mat and you're like, okay, you have to do this for this amount of time, and these are all the people you're going to go through, blah, 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 blah. It could just be so overwhelming. But if you have these people on the line and you're like, okay, each of these is a minute, let's go. That's all they can focus on. It's just that one person in front of them, and that's what they got to do, is you just got to knock it out one person at a time, and then you get through it. If you look at the giant thing, this giant problem with it, it can seem just insurmountable. But if you just take it, give it your heart at each step, then there you go. Next thing you know, you've done the giant Shark Tank and you're ready to compete.
That's so beautiful. But that's so true. And not only you're ready to compete, but like, to me, Sal Rivero said it the best, right? If you're a champion on the mats, but your personal life is in shambles, you're not a champion. And when you learn something through like the Shark Tank, I want you to not just apply it towards competition, but I want you to take this into your personal life and start addressing something that you thought was unachievable, something that you couldn't do anything about to change, and I think that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, man, is like start taking those lessons, start applying it into your personal life, start applying it um, into your relationship, being a better person, being a better boyfriend, husband, a friend,
Right.
that's a beautiful thing of it, man.
Yeah, man. It's great if you can take those lessons and apply them, and then you also have the aspect of jujitsu that helps your personal life. Even if you're not doing things like metaphorically or looking for the deeper meanings, you have just the basic stuff like, hey, I have to train at 6 tomorrow. I can't, drink tonight. Or, you know
Right.
what I mean? Or I have to learn how to take notes, you know what I mean? Because it's not working for me going in and trying to just remember the stuff from the last class, So, you can learn all these skills and have all these things that affect you just from showing up to jiu-jitsu every day, even if you don't know that's what you're doing, you know what I mean?
Right.
So whether you're, getting deep with it or you're just showing up to class every day and doing what you need to do to get better, either way,
It's
jiu-jitsu
just
is
through
going to help
exposure,
you.
man. Yeah, it's like I remember when I started, when I started training jujitsu, it was just like everybody that was around me seemed like a superhero. They
Yeah.
had this crazy ability to, number one, like whoop my butt, but also like everybody seemed so put together, and that inspired me, and that
Yeah.
inspired me to say, okay, you know what, maybe I like how this person carries themselves. Um, I'm gonna start doing more things like this person, and this is like
Yeah, for sure.
this is like pre what do you call it, influencers, right? So this is like before we had guys like Jocko that, which I love, man. I
Right.
love when people send me posts from Jocko. I would love when people send me posts from the gentleman that runs a lot. What's his name? Feel bad for not knowing his name.
I don't know.
There's some dude that it's like always like, if you're not running, you're a piece of shit, you're a coward, blah blah blah, and every time somebody sends me one of those, I'm like, I don't want to open it because I hate running, or maybe I want to take the day
I,
off, but this dude will not let you take the day off, so I love that, man. And it's people that I met through jiu-jitsu that inspire me to start being more like that, where we will things into
yeah.
existence. We were
Yeah.
talking about energy,
It's
man.
funny.
So what's your experience been like as far as like energy with like no jiu-jitsu training?
As far as no jiu-jitsu training, it's been a little lower. I got to be honest, I haven't, been doing everything I can, in the past couple weeks to get better and to stay in shape. It was just really just a few days ago. I was watching the Donna Hare DVD about all the, it was a bunch of solo drills.
Right.
And he was like, hey, like, he's long-winded. Like he just talks and talks and talks. He like literally it's an hour about like a hip escape. But I'm
Right.
like, okay, but he says some cool stuff, So was basically like, hey, every day that you waste is a day that you could have gotten a little bit better. Maybe you won't notice it, and then I was like, oh shit, like I better get back at this, I've had a few days that I've trained, but now I'm just kind of getting back to it. But my energy's been lower probably because I put on like 15 pounds.
Oh shit! Well, it's all fun and games that we come back and now we're like, oh, we're doing masters, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, so now we're like,
well, we're gonna see who's putting in the work and who hasn't. I mean, when we get back on the mat, it's gonna show, man. If you've been, I have some teammates that are putting in work every day, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
I need to give not that, otherwise I'm gonna get on the mat with these guys and it's gonna be ugly for a month.
yeah. But that's the thing, man. It's like I think that at least for me, like I've been doing it long enough to where I know it's going to suck, but I'm just gonna keep showing up. I'm just gonna keep getting my butt whooped, and eventually, little by little, that win keeps coming back. But yeah, you have to stay active, man. Like I remember Hey Diogo from Carlson Gracie was one of the black belts that was one of my early mentors, and he said it the best. He said you need to stay within 10 pounds of your fight weight.
Yeah.
So it's something I've been trying to stay within, but yeah, it's the same thing, man. It's like there's nothing to do. Uh, you know, I've been working in the backyard, and this is where I repeat it, I say it, but it's so true. And sometimes, we know the answer, but we don't live with the advice, right? Where it's like,
Right.
at the lack of motivation, have discipline, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't been feeling motivated because I've been doing other things, but I need to be disciplined. I need to keep doing it.
Well, I mean, for me personally, when I've been in the best shape of my life, or when I'm really training hard, I have someone there pushing me. Like I need a coach. Like that.
Mhm.
That's just me personally how I operate. So going back to like I'm not flawless. You know what I mean? It's like I could sit here on this podcast and be like, I've been working out every day. I'm an animal, like, you know what I mean? But
That's why we
it's
have
just
the
not
camera
true.
just from
I need,
here
yeah,
up so they
right,
can see the belly, man. Yeah, we're like,
right. I just, I'm the type of guy that I need someone there pushing me. But, one thing that I just started doing was, we're supposed to be doing the social distancing. So I have a friend that I trust that I know is like doing the same thing as me. And so now we each have one training partner. So I have a gym at my house that he can come to and we can roll with each other. And he's a brown belt and he's sick, so
right.
that way, I have somebody to train with and because I need that motivation. I need someone to push me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I
Yeah, I
mean,
love that thing that you said because I'm the exact same way. I try to find as many areas of my life where I can be the student and not the coach. It's so
right.
easy to get put into the coach role, into everything. But what about me as a student? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So for example, I trained with, I know that you've trained with him too, Gabe Cordova from Sharks.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
training with him because, and he's such a nice guy because he's always like, "Hey man, we're gonna do this. How do you feel about that?" And I'm like, "Dude, don't ask me for any. You tell me what to
Right.
do and how many times I'm gonna do it, and that's what I'm gonna,
Pushing you right now, right?
or I'm
Yeah.
gonna die trying. But that's a beautiful thing of being the student where you can just, you find the right person in whatever area you're going to try to improve on, and just be the student, man. That's something that I think people are so reluctant to continue to be. They want to be the coach so quick. They want to get into a position where, ask me, I have the answers, or they just I don't know what it is, man. But I find that my biggest it's not a pet peeve, but something that I find extremely um, irritating for me is when people try to put themselves into that coach role too
Right.
fast, too fast. Just dude, slow down, man. You have no idea how fortunate you are to be able to be a student.
It's
Just show
burn.
up and be like, "Hey, man, what do you want me to do?"
That's why, like when I have other coaches at our school that coach, if it's a night class or a morning class, I'm there. It's like as much as I might want a day off, or I'm like, cool, I don't have to be there at the gym today. If I have like, Gerald or Phil, at my school teaching that night, or Izzy, whoever's teaching that adults night class, it's like, I'm going to go to it. I can sit and watch and like, sure, of course I'm going to answer questions and stuff to my students, and give my 2 cents when we all sit around and chat about it at the end. But it's so nice to just sit and watch someone else and be like,
Right.
okay, cool, I'm going to add this to my game. Because it's hard to it's hard to like find that level of improvement that you're constantly striving for if you don't have someone to learn from. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it takes all your time, man. It's tough.
Yeah, I know, but and it's so easy. It's really easy to be a student and to continue to improve your game if you're humble about it, right? So, like you said, like just show up to class, even if you're not going to do the class, man, because you might like a toreando pass, like the bullfighter. You know it, I know it, millions of people know it. But there's going to be that one dude, regardless of his rank, that just does it a little bit differently. That completely changes the way you look at the bullfighter pass from forever
Yeah.
on. And like for me, I was watching. I love to watch tape. I love to just sit down and watch people compete. Um,
Hmm.
and I remember all of a sudden watching like Landon Lowe, like that dude rewrote the book on bullfighting passes, and
Uh-huh.
that's the magic of just like, dude, I don't have all the answers, right? So we're like, just be humble about it and just be willing to learn from everybody and at any point, because you also don't know, like, you can't assume people's backgrounds, so like
Yeah.
a guy that can be in the room and you wouldn't even know how much of a badass he is. It's like Mike Romero, he's one of our black belts.
Mhm.
He's, dude, you couldn't, you wouldn't know what a highly decorated wrestler he is.
Right.
But if you just like humbly like start just asking him questions. This guy was the main training partner for Rulon Gardner, who went on to compete in the Olympics. Um,
Uh-huh.
but he can sit through an entire class and not say anything,
Right.
because he's the guy too. He's so hungry for knowledge that he's willing to quiet that voice of like, oh, I have to, let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you what I know. He's more into like, I'm here to learn, I'm here to learn. And
Yeah. Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. What's crazy is that, what he said is that you can learn something from anybody. I mean, I I have a white belt, Omar, who like is doing this like this step across pass, and like his shins are made of like like
It just
adamantium or
hurts.
something.
Yeah.
He just and he like and I'm like playing around and he does it on me. And I'm like, oh shit, of course I like recovered. It's not
Yeah,
safety
yeah.
pass.
Recover like a G, but you're like, all right, hang on, let me shrimp here.
But I'm watching him do this pass, and I'm like, what the F is this guy doing different than everybody? I've never seen someone just step across and like pass so many people's guards. I don't know, man. I'm still trying to break it down because he can't really tell me. But I'm like, he
Yeah,
doesn't
there,
know
and
it,
that's, yeah, and it could be something that is so. And again, going back to Lowe, like if you watch Lowe teach, especially like early in his black belt career, he was horrible at teaching because he was so good at doing what he was doing just for himself. He couldn't really explain to you what he was doing,
Right.
But I have one of our brown belts, man. He has a background in breakdancing,
Uh-huh.
as crazy as it is, and he came up with this escape from a kimura that he like all of a sudden did it on me, and I was like, whoa, whoa, what was that? And he goes, I don't know, man. I just like thought I could like break dance my way out of this. You know what I mean? And I was like, what did you just say? And he goes, I just thought I could break dance my way out of it, and he did. And we figure out what he did, but you just gotta have an open mind, just let people try things and
That's
figure.
the beauty of it, man. It's endless.
It's as sunless as your mind allows it to be, right? Because ego is the greatest. It can be a motivator because I think ego is what pushes. It's is the ego in the sense of I want to be a better person or a better competitor than this other guy, right? I don't want to enter a competition, get my butt whooped, so my ego will force me to train and prepare. But the ego, if you don't control it, if you don't monitor it, will stop you from training with this other guy because, oh well, if I lose, they're gonna talk. He's from another academy. That's where ego. How do you manage your ego, man?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like you see the extreme of it is when like some people they never even begin training because
Mm.
they go in and they lose and then they see how serious jiu-jitsu really is and then they walk away and they go their mind just goes, oh, that was like a fluke, but I won't go back, or whatever excuse that they make up in their head, or like I was really tired today or whatever it might be. And it stops them. But as far as me controlling my ego, man, I don't know. I always feel like I think I'm just a realist. You know what I mean? Any match that I have going in, like obviously I want to win and I'm super competitive and I'm going to try really, really hard. But I always know like there's a chance I'll lose. I've never been one of the dudes that was like, oh, I'm going to beat your ass. Like I'm going to do this, Or before I trained, I was like that. I was an idiot. But, once I like started training and realized like everybody's got a shot, man. Take everybody seriously. So, I mean, for me, I'm not going to say like, oh, I don't have one, but I mean, I'm just realistic. I know that, could lose any time.
Yeah,
So
no. How do
that's
you
kind of
how do you, because I think the biggest, that's one of the biggest, or the first, rather, the first hurdle that a student will encounter is that ego, because again, the teachings of jiu-jitsu, right? So it'll take a little bit for you to realize that you're learning and that you're getting better.
Right.
because it'll be a couple of weeks before somebody new shows up and try out the class. Meanwhile, you're just getting your butt kicked, and you're like, am I even learning? Am I getting better? So
Right.
that's the first conversation that I find myself having with one of the new students is the ego, right? How do you check the ego and how
Yeah.
to manage it, and how do you what's your go-to advice for your new students on how to manage that?
New students, I pretty much always like break it down to them in the very beginning. Like the first class, whenever anybody comes in for a consultation or they show up and they're like, hey, I was thinking about doing jujitsu, we sit and then, we'll demonstrate the moves, and then I'll take them to the side and I'll basically just show them every position in jujitsu. And that's the way I introduce them into it. But along with it is like my spiel, that I'm talking about jujitsu. And I explain that they're going to lose and that it's really, really hard. Like that this isn't something that you're just going to come in and be good at, that you're going to lose for a while. And eventually someone else is going to come in that hasn't trained before, and you're going to see that you've made progress. So I kind of just warn people that that's how it's going to be.
You have to be a realist, and you have to, yeah, and back to the realism, right? You have to be a realist, and you have to tell this person this is how it's going to be for a really long time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the issues with, not issues, but, I've had conversations with people like, hey, like, how is this like self-defense? You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, unfortunately, there's so much to learn here. Like, there's so much, I think about every single position, every single move. There's an attack, there's defense, there's an escape. There's a scramble in between, and there's a transition to go from here to there. And you can break all of these down from every single position that you can be at, from standing to sitting to, on your back to internal. It's like, it's endless. So it's like, unfortunately, there's no like, oh, like you're going to learn self-defense today. You're going to learn how, to like tackle someone and hold them down. And, like, yeah, you're going to learn that, but it freaking takes like forever to get good at that, So I always tell people, like, there's no like 2-day self-defense course. Like, it's just not real. You're never going to, if someone's attacking you and you're not going to learn how to just kick them in the nuts perfectly. Like, if you went to one of those.
But my nephew's a black belt, and he's 12 years old. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you not a black belt already? How come it took you 10 years or 12 or whatever? You know what I mean? That's a problem, and it's like it's the thing's a combination of like movies and other martial arts, and people not having a grasp of how intricate fighting really is.
Yeah.
Where you can be, are we talking about just sports jiu-jitsu? Are we talking about self-defense jiu-jitsu? Are we talking about MMA? Are we talking about nogi? Are we talking about leg locks? What are we talking about? There's like just 5 different things right there that can make your training that much more, I don't want to say complicated, but that much more specialized in those areas. So you could be training for 10 years and still haven't specialized in anything. You're just learning the basics.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's like, that stuff comes up like when you're like, showing someone like, okay, you're inside control, you're on the bottom, and like, you're going to make a frame, right? And it's like, that's all we're doing is we're making a frame, we're opening towards them, and we're going to try to make some space. And it's just like, how is this self-defense to a new person? They're like, what is this? And it's like, believe me, it's important, I promise,
Right.
But
well, you're gonna teach me any heel hooks, or because I've been watching jujitsu, so that's like the new thing, right? It's like I have people come in and they're like, so in preparation for this, I've been watching a lot of jujitsu on YouTube, and I saw a lot of heel hooks. And are you gonna show me any heel hooks? And I'm like, can't even escape side control, man. What are you talking about? Heel hooks. But that's so that's also the new challenge of where that information is coming from, right? So like when I started 20 years ago, there was only like 1 or 2 sources of information when it came down to jiu-jitsu, right? And it was your time that you had with your instructor, and maybe like a VHS tape that was floating around from some tournament, or like one of the books that the Gracies had put out, and that's it, man. And you as a new guy in the academy, it was going to be months before you even got a hold of those things, So how do you manage?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Before I answer this question, Let me feed this dog. She's
Go
gonna
feed your
sit
dog, man.
and cry right now. It's gonna
Oh,
take 1
poor
second.
guy. All right, go. So, well, Mike goes and feeds his dog, talking to the rest of you guys watching this. Hurry up, Mike. No, so one of the conversations that I want to have with Mike and with the rest of you guys is how to manage that wealth of information that all of you guys are going to have um, when you guys start training jiu-jitsu, which is going to be YouTube, which is going to be online training just from just about everybody that you can imagine in the world, right? So it's important that, and Mike, welcome back. But one of the things I was talking to our audience was that we're not telling people to avoid those sorts of information like YouTube, online training, and books and whatever it is, but it also has to take a backseat to what's being taught in the academy. Because while all those moves are cool and everything, trust me, none of that works if you don't have a strong fundamental game, right? And that's going
Yeah.
back to the frame. How does this fit into this? Well, dude, if you can't escape side control, you're done, right?
A lot of the advice I give people when it comes to like doing research and finding stuff on YouTube and figuring out like, extra things that we're not doing is I tell people to kind of take mental notes, as they're training or go home and write in their journal and to look up things that just apply to what they're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't help to just completely deviate from like the system that you're good at. If you're new at jiu-jitsu and you've been training for, 8 months, right? There's going to be moves that in this beginning are going to become a part of like your bread and butter system, right? Like I don't have like one bread and butter move, but I have like, a good like butterfly guard that, I work all these like sweeps and things off of, and that's the system. You know what I mean? So if you're going to be looking up stuff to do, have one thing that you're good at that you rely on and just try to branch off of that. That's my advice if you're going to look up things to do.
That's beautiful, man. So tell us a little bit about your vision for your academy, man. When you decided that you were going to be a gym owner, an academy owner, what's your vision for Mako when you open it? What's your vision for it now, and where's Mako going to be in 5 years?
In 5 years, well, it's Mako, but
I'm sorry.
you're Mexican, so I know why you pronounce it like that. But in 5 years, man, honestly, I'm happy with like 200 students and maybe knocking out the wall next to us and adding on another 1,000 square feet of mat. That's like, honestly, the vision for me. If I have a student that wants to open an affiliate, by all means, like go, I will support you 100%. But the vision as far as the jiu-jitsu school itself isn't like any like huge expansion. It's just having a really nice gym, and just constantly doing the upgrades to the gym. Eventually we'll get the tile in there. Eventually we'll do the bathroom. We'll have some lockers. We'll have a shower. All these things that you can't just go out and get from the beginning if you don't have a ton of capital. But that's it for the gym itself. I plan on moving forward in different areas of life, as far as like, my creativity. I like doing clothing and graphic design and, things like that. So, the gym will always be my priority, but as far as advancing the gym any further, there's no like huge goal of like a bunch of affiliates or anything like that. I just want to have a solid school that people are proud of, that we can say, hey, we've been here for 5 years and, we've been doing it right. And these guys have, produced a few killers, and then we also have the people that just want to come in and train and don't want to compete. For me, finding that balance is what's going to be good for me. I don't need to be just a complete competition school. I want it to be, for everybody, but I also want to produce a few killers.
Beautiful, man. Well, dude, I don't have any other questions. Like I said, it's been awesome finally sit down and talk to you and get to know you a little bit more, because we're always running around. We're always coaching and yelling and competing or but it's a busy lifestyle, man, of that of a school owner, competitor. But like I said, a lot of my students, and I know a lot of your students, and it's so amazing to hear the great things that you're doing in your part of town over there on the east side with your academy. So keep charging, keep at it, man. And it's also to call you a brother in arms, you know, in the sport of jiu-jitsu, in the art of jiu-jitsu. And dude, we keep working, man. So all this will pass and the doors will reopen, and I can't wait for people to continue to that journey of finding jiu-jitsu like I found, like you found it. So any
Yeah,
closing
man.
words?
You know, I think this whole thing's just going to make us all a lot more appreciative of what we have. I'm looking forward to training with everybody. And if anybody out there needs any advice or needs someone to talk to, I'll always respond to anybody on Messenger. Hit me up, and anything you want to talk about, let me know. If you're having any trouble, you're going through any troubled times, I don't care who you are. If we've never met, send me a message. I'll chat with you.
Beautiful, brother. Well, cheers. And
Cheers, brother.
great to see you,
Thanks for
man.
having me, brother. Good to see you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.